So hey guys. The series name is What If Naruto Teleported in Total Drama. So let's start the series. Welcome back, Canada! Chris announced, arms spread wide like he was embracing the entire country. You thought last season was crazy? You thought watching teenagers humiliate themselves for our amusement peaked with killer bees and a psychotic bear? Well, think again. Chef grunted. They never learn. That's the beauty of it, Chef. They never do. Chris practically bounced on his heels. This season, we're doing something different. Something revolutionary. Something so dangerous that our insurance company literally laughed when we told them and then hung up. The camera zoomed in on Chris's face as his expression shifted from manic excitement to something slightly more sinister. We've added a special guest to the roster. A game changer. An enforcer. Someone who will make sure these campers understand that total drama isn't just a game anymore. Chef crossed his massive arms. You mean someone who'll do the dirty work so we don't get sued again? I prefer to think of it as innovative disciplinary consultation. Chris waved his hand dismissively. Now let's meet our victims. I mean campers. The boat of losers, a term Chris used with genuine affection, chugged toward the island, packed with the familiar faces that fans had come to love and hate in equal measure. Duncan leaned against the railing, his usual smirk firmly in place, while Courtney sat ramrod straight beside him, already making lists on a small notepad. I've prepared a 37-point strategy for this season, Courtney announced to no one in particular, including meal optimization schedules, alliance probability matrices, and a comprehensive analysis of every challenge from previous seasons. Gwen, sitting nearby with her knees pulled to her chest, raised an eyebrow. You know it's a reality show, right? Not the Olympics? Reality shows require more strategy than the Olympics, Gwen. Anyone can run fast. Not everyone can manipulate public perception while maintaining physical peak performance. Love the enthusiasm, Courtney, a voice chirped from across the boat. Izzy bounced in her seat, restrained only by the fact that she'd been handcuffed to the railing after attempting to test the buoyancy of their transportation. I've got my own strategy. It involves a lot of screaming and possibly some interpretive dance. No one's stopping you, Noah muttered from the corner, nose buried in a book. Unfortunately. The boat continued its journey, carrying its cargo of hormonal chaos toward whatever fresh hell Chris had prepared. Tyler sat near the back, doing increasingly elaborate stretches that made Owen, seated beside him, look distinctly uncomfortable. Dude, are you okay? You've been doing that for like 20 minutes. Gotta stay limber, Owen. You never know when flexibility might save your life. Tyler grinned, oblivious to the irony of that statement. Lindsay examined her reflection in a compact mirror. Totally. Like, what if we have to squeeze through a tiny tunnel or something? Being flexible is, like, super important for that. That's not really how tunnels work, Trent offered gently. Whatever you say, Trentastic. Across from them, Heather observed the group with the cold calculation of a predator surveying a buffet. Her lips curved into a small smile. New season, new victims, same game. She'd already identified potential allies, potential threats, and potential scapegoats. The only variable she hadn't accounted for was whatever surprise Chris had promised. A surprise? She murmured to herself. How delightful. I do love surprises I can manipulate. Beside her, Justin examined his reflection in the water, occasionally flexing for no particular reason. DJ sat quietly, already missing his mother. He promised her this season would be different. No curses, no bad luck, no supernatural nonsense. Just a normal summer camp experience with normal challenges and normal. Land ho! Owen shouted, pointing toward the approaching island. Camp Wawanakwa loomed before them, somehow more rundown than the previous season. The dock sagged precariously. The cabins had developed new holes. And standing at the center of the dock, flanked by Chris and Chef, stood a figure that made even the most oblivious campers pause. He was tall, not Chef Hatchet tall, but tall enough. Silver hair caught the morning light, defying gravity in ways that made no physical sense. A black cloak hung from his shoulders, embroidered with patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. But it was his eyes that commanded attention. Deep. Ancient. And watching them with the patient stillness of something that had waited centuries for this exact moment. The boat bumped against the dock. No one moved to disembark. Well? Chris spread his arms. Welcome to Camp Wawanakwa. Don't be shy. We don't bite. The silver-haired stranger's lips curved slightly. It was not a reassuring expression. Unless we have to, Chris added, laughing nervously. Kidding. Mostly kidding. Get off the boat. The campers assembled on the dock in a loose semicircle, instinctively positioning themselves as far from the stranger as possible, while still obeying Chris's commands. Gwen noticed that even Duncan, the self-proclaimed bad boy who feared nothing, kept his distance. "All right, campers." Chris clapped his hands. "Welcome to the most insane, most dangerous, most ratings-guaranteed season of Total Drama Island yet. And to kick things off, I'd like to introduce our special guest." He gestured grandly toward the silver-haired man, who stepped forward with a grace that suggested he wasn't quite bound by normal physics. "This is Naruto Uzumaki. He'll be serving as our, let's call it, disciplinary consultant for the season. His job is simple: observe the challenges, ensure fair play, and deal with any complications that arise." "Complications?" Courtney's hand shot up. "What kind of complications? I need specifics for my planning documents." Naruto's gaze shifted to her, and Courtney actually lowered her hand. Something in those eyes suggested that interrupting wasn't the wisest choice. "Complications," Naruto repeated, his voice surprisingly soft. "The island holds many secrets. Some old, some angry, some both." He paused, letting that sink in. "I am here to ensure you survive them." A beat of silence. Then Owen laughed, the sound breaking the tension like a hammer through glass. "Dude, great delivery. You totally had us going there. Secrets of the island, angry secrets. Classic Chris script, right guys?" No one laughed with him. Owen's smile faltered. "He's not joking," Gwen said quietly. She'd spent enough time around weirdness to recognize genuine strangeness when she saw it. And Naruto Uzumaki radiated wrongness like a furnace radiated heat. "He's absolutely joking," Heather countered, recovering her composure. "This is clearly just another actor Chris hired to mess with us. Look at him, dramatic cloak, spooky eyes, vague threats. It's theater, people." Naruto turned to face Heather fully. The motion was unhurried, almost lazy. But Heather felt something cold trickle down her spine despite the warm morning air. "You believe I am pretending?" Naruto asked. "I believe you're getting paid to stand there looking mysterious." Heather crossed her arms. "Congratulations, you're very good at it. Now can we get to the actual competition?" Chris opened his mouth, probably to defuse the situation, or more likely to escalate it for ratings, but Naruto raised one hand. The gesture was casual. A simple lifting of fingers. The sky cracked. Thunder rolled across clear blue heavens as lightning forked down, striking the water 50 feet from the dock. The impact sent spray arcing high, and the shockwave made the wooden planks beneath their feet tremble. Seagulls for miles around took flight in panicked clouds. Naruto lowered his hand. The sky returned to perfect calm. Heather's face had gone white. Her arms remained crossed, but they were crossed so tightly now that she looked like she was trying to squeeze herself into non-existence. That's a special effect," she managed. "There are cables or... The only cables on this island are the ones holding up your ego," Naruto said. "I suggest you adjust your expectations accordingly." He turned away from her, dismissing her completely, and addressed the entire group. "I am not here to be your friend. I am not here to entertain you. I am here to ensure that this competition proceeds with order. You will follow the rules. You will respect your fellow competitors. You will complete your challenges." His eyes swept across them, and each camper felt, for just a moment, as though they were being weighed on some ancient scale. "Those who do these things have nothing to fear from me. Those who do not." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "Right." Chris clapped again, filling the silence with manic energy. "So, now that we've established the ground rules, Naruto, maybe save the lightning displays for the challenges? That was amazing footage, but also possibly illegal in some provinces. Let's get you campers settled in your cabins. Chef, if you would." Chef grunted and gestured toward the path leading inland. "Move it, maggots. Cabins are that way. Any stragglers get latrine duty for the entire season." The campers moved. They moved quickly, gratefully, desperate to put distance between themselves and the silver-haired monster standing on the dock. Only one lingered. Gwen hung back, watching Naruto as the others fled. He stood perfectly still, gazing out at the water, and for just a moment, she thought she saw something in his expression that didn't match the terrifying figure from moments ago. Weariness. Loneliness. The weight of ages. Then he turned, caught her watching, and the ancient mask slid back into place. "You should join the others," he said. "The cabins are safe. For now." "Who are you really?" Gwen asked. "And don't give me the spiel Chris prepared. I want the truth." Naruto studied her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet enough that only she could hear. I am what protects this island from what sleeps beneath it. And what protects you from yourselves. A pause. That is all the truth you need. He walked past her, following the path toward the cabins, leaving Gwen alone on the dock with more questions than answers and a sinking feeling that this season would be nothing like any of them expected. Far beneath Camp Woanakwa, in darkness so complete it had forgotten the meaning of light, something stirred. It had slept for millennia, sealed away by powers long since faded from the world. But seals weaken. Powers wane. And the chaos of reality television, the emotional turmoil, the concentrated teenage angst, seep through ancient barriers like water through cracked stone. The thing beneath the island opened one eye. Above, teenagers screamed and laughed and plotted. Below, hunger stirred. And on the dock, Naruto Uzumaki paused mid-step, feeling the shift in energies that only he could perceive. Too soon, he murmured to the wind. Sleep a while longer. But even as he spoke, he knew the words were hollow. The game had already changed. The dragon of the apocalypse had arrived at Camp Woanakwa. And something else had woken up to meet him. The first night at Camp Woanakwa was supposed to be like any other first night, chaotic, loud, and filled with the kind of bonding that only shared terror could produce. But as the sun set over the island, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, an unusual quiet settled over the cabins. No one wanted to be the first to break the silence. In the guy's cabin, Owen sat on his bunk, nervously twisting his fingers together. So, that guy. Naruto. Pretty intense, right? Dude was crazy. Tyler agreed, still doing stretches despite the confined space. Lightning from a clear sky? That's not normal. That's not even abnormal. That's like, super abnormal. Special effects, Justin said, examining his reflection in a spoon. Has to be. Chris probably rigged the whole area with weather machines or something. Chris McLean couldn't afford a working toaster. Noah pointed out from his bunk, not looking up from his book. You really think he installed weather manipulation technology? Then how do you explain it? Noah finally lowered his book, fixing Justin with a flat stare. I don't. That's the problem. Duncan, sprawled across his bunk with his hands behind his head, let out a scoff. You guys are all freaking out over nothing. So the guy's got a few tricks. Big deal. I've dealt with scarier guys in juvie. You've dealt with guys who can summon lightning with a wave? Cody asked, his voice cracking slightly. I've dealt with guys who think they can summon lightning. Same difference. Duncan grinned, but even he glanced toward the window more often than he'd admit. In the girls' cabin, the atmosphere was similarly tense. Heather sat on her bunk, perfectly composed, brushing her hair with long, deliberate strokes. I don't see what the big deal is. So he's dramatic. So he's got some theatrical effects. It's all part of the show. The producers probably briefed him extensively on exactly how to intimidate us. He made the sky explode, Heather, Lindsay pointed out. That's like way beyond briefing. I'm sure there's a logical explanation. Izzy thinks he's a wizard, Izzy announced from somewhere beneath her bunk, where she'd apparently decided to build a fort out of spare blankets. A super powerful sky wizard who's come to test our magical potential. There's no such thing as wizards, Courtney said firmly, still working on her planning documents by flashlight. There's science, strategy, and preparation. Nothing else. What about the lightning? Gwen asked quietly. Courtney paused, pen hovering above paper. Atmospheric anomaly. Rare, but documented. And the way he looked at us. Like we were. I don't know, like we were small? Intimidation tactics. Standard psychological manipulation. Gwen wanted to believe her. She really did. But she'd seen something in Naruto's eyes that didn't fit Courtney's neat explanations. Something old. Something powerful. Something that had looked at a group of teenagers and seen not threats or targets, but something closer to children. I'm going for a walk, she announced, standing. Are you crazy? Lindsay gasped. It's dark. And there's a lightning wizard out there. Sky wizard, Izzy corrected from her fort. Whatever. It's dangerous. Gwen pulled on her jacket. I'll be fine. I just need some air. She slipped out before anyone could argue further. The path to the dock was lit by moonlight, silver and pale, transforming the familiar campground into something almost magical. Gwen walked slowly, drinking in the quiet. On a normal season, she'd be worried about producers jumping out with cameras, or Chris staging some spontaneous scare. But tonight, the island felt genuinely empty. Except for the figure standing at the end of the dock. Gwen hesitated. Part of her wanted to turn back, to retreat to the relative safety of the cabin and pretend she hadn't seen him. But curiosity, that stubborn, self-destructive curiosity that had gotten her into trouble more times than she could count, pushed her forward. Naruto didn't turn as she approached. He stood at the edge of the dock, gazing out at the water, silver hair stirring in the night breeze. "You should be sleeping," he said without looking at her. "Tomorrow's challenge will be difficult." "Can't sleep. Too much on my mind." Gwen stopped a few feet away, maintaining what she hoped was a safe distance. "What are you doing out here?" "Watching." "Watching what?" Naruto was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "The barrier between worlds is thin here. Thinner than it should be. Something has been disturbing it." "Barrier? Worlds?" Gwen shook her head. "You're going to have to give me more than cryptic one-liners if you want me to understand." Naruto turned. In the moonlight, his eyes seemed to glow faintly, not with reflected light, but with something deeper, something internal. "Tell me, Gwen. Do you believe in things beyond your understanding? Powers that don't fit neatly into the categories you've been taught?" "I believe in what I can see." "Then look." He raised his hand, and the air shimmered. Ripples spread outward from his palm like heat haze, and within those ripples, Gwen saw something. Shapes that moved with purpose. Colors that didn't exist in nature. And beneath it all, a vast, pulsing darkness that seemed to breathe. The vision lasted only seconds. Then Naruto lowered his hand, and the night returned to normal. What was that?" "The truth of this island. What lies beneath it. What sleeps in the dark." Naruto's expression was grim. "For centuries, it slumbered peacefully. But now something has woken it. Stirred it from dreams it should never have left." "What kind of something?" Naruto looked at her, and for the first time, Gwen saw something like uncertainty in those ancient eyes. "You." The next morning dawned bright and clear, as though the previous night's revelations had never happened. Gwen stumbled into breakfast with dark circles under her eyes, having spent hours staring at the ceiling and trying to process what Naruto had shown her. "You look terrible," Noah observed as she collapsed onto the bench beside him. "Thanks. You always know just what to say." "I try." He pushed a plate of toast toward her. "Eat. You'll need energy for whatever fresh hell Chris has planned." As if summoned by the mention of his name, Chris appeared at the front of the mess hall, Chef Hatchet looming behind him with a tray covered by a cloth. "Good morning, campers. I hope you all slept well, because today we're starting with a bang. Or rather, with a challenge." He gestured, and Chef whipped the cloth away, revealing a table covered with bottles. Water bottles. Dozens of them, filled with clear liquid. "This," Chris announced dramatically, "is water. Ordinary, boring, completely unremarkable water from the camp's taps." "Thrilling," Duncan muttered. "Ah, but here's where it gets interesting," Chris continued undeterred. "Your first challenge is simple: collect water from various locations around the island and bring it back here. The team with the most water by sunset wins. But," he held up a finger, "there's a catch. Obviously." "Obviously," the campers echoed wearily. "The water you collect won't just be judged by quantity. It'll be judged by quality. Different locations on the island have different types of water, some clean, some less clean. Some maybe even magical." He winked. "And the water you collect will determine your rewards for the entire first week. So choose wisely." Naruto stood at the edge of the gathering, watching the campers with the same patient stillness he'd shown on the dock. Gwen caught his eye, and for just a moment she thought she saw a flicker of something, warning, concern, before his expression smoothed back to neutrality. "Teams," Chris announced. "We've already assigned you based on your cabins. Guys versus girls. Simple, classic, guaranteed to produce drama." The guys' team, dubbed the Gigantic Guys, by an enthusiastic Owen, huddled together immediately, while the girls' team, the Fantastic Females, courtesy of Lindsay, did the same. "All right," Courtney said, taking charge with the authority of someone who'd been waiting for this moment her entire life. "We need a strategy. Random collection won't work. We need to identify the most valuable water sources and prioritize them." Ooh, Lindsay waved her hand. "What about that pretty stream near the North Beach? The water there is, like, super clear." "Clear doesn't necessarily mean valuable. We need more information." Courtney pulled out her notepad. "We should split into pairs and scout multiple locations. Report back in an hour with samples and observations." "Sounds like a plan," Gwen agreed, grateful for Courtney's organizational skills despite herself. I'll take the forest area. I'll go with you, Bridget offered. Safety in numbers, right? The guy's team, meanwhile, had developed a strategy that could generously be described as less structured. Okay, Owen said, bouncing on his heels. We need to win this. What if we all go to different places and just grab as much water as we can? Quantity over quality. That's actually not terrible, Duncan admitted. Cover more ground, grab everything we can, sort it out later. Except we don't know what quality means in this context, Trent pointed out. What if we grab a bunch of useless water and the girls get one bottle of super valuable stuff and win? Then we steal theirs, Duncan suggested with a grin. That's against the rules. Since when have rules stopped anyone on this show? In the end, the guys adopted a modified version of Owen's plan: spread out, grab everything, hope for the best. Cody, Tyler, and DJ headed toward the beaches. Owen, Trent, and Justin took the forest. Duncan and Noah, grudgingly paired together, headed for the island's interior, where Chris had hinted at special water sources. Naruto watched them disperse, his expression unreadable. Then, very quietly, he spoke to no one in particular. They don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what's looking for them. The forest was beautiful in the morning light, lush and green and deceptively peaceful. Gwen and Bridget walked carefully, collecting samples from every stream and puddle they encountered, labeling each one with location and time. This is almost pleasant, Bridget commented, kneeling to fill a bottle from a small waterfall. Compared to some of Chris's challenges, anyway. Don't jinx it. Gwen scanned the trees, unable to shake the feeling that they were being watched. Nothing on this island is ever as nice as it seems. Come on, where's your sense of adventure? Buried somewhere under years of cynicism and disappointment. Bridget laughed, but the sound died in her throat as the forest shifted. It was subtle at first, a slight darkening at the edges of vision, a change in the quality of light. But then the trees themselves seemed to move, their branches reaching toward each other, weaving together into patterns that hadn't existed moments before. Gwen? Bridget's voice was small. The path. I think we lost the path. Gwen turned slowly, taking in their surroundings. The forest had changed. Where before there had been open spaces and visible trails, now there was only dense undergrowth and shadow. The cheerful birdsong had stopped. Even the wind seemed hesitant to move. We need to go back, Gwen said. Now. They turned and ran, or tried to. But the forest had other plans. Every direction looked the same. Every path led deeper into darkness. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, they stumbled into a clearing that definitely hadn't been there before. In the center of the clearing stood a door. It was old, ancient, really, made of wood so dark it was almost black. Iron hinges, rusted with age, held it upright despite the lack of any supporting walls. And carved into its surface were symbols that Gwen couldn't read but somehow understood. Do not enter. Do not open. Do not approach. Okay, Bridget whispered. Okay, this is bad. This is really, really bad. The door creaked. Something on the other side was pushing. Naruto felt the disturbance the moment it happened. The barrier he'd been watching for centuries shuddered, and through the crack, something reached, not to escape, but to pull. He moved. To the campers scattered across the island, it appeared as though a silver blur passed overhead. To those with sharper senses, it seemed like the very air bent around something moving too fast to track. And to Gwen and Bridget, frozen before the ancient door, it looked like salvation. Naruto landed in the clearing with enough force to crack the earth. His cloak billowed around him as he strode toward the door, and for the first time, Gwen saw something other than calm detachment in his expression. Rage. Ancient, terrible, barely contained rage. You! He snarled at the door. You dare? The door trembled. The carvings seemed to writhe, and from the other side came a sound like laughter, deep and mocking and impossibly old. You are not welcome here, Naruto growled. You were sealed for a reason. Return to your prison, or I will remind you why the seals were placed. The laughter continued. The door creaked further. Naruto raised his hand, and this time, there was no casual gesture. This time, power erupted, golden light that blasted outward in waves, striking the door with the force of a hurricane. The ancient wood screamed, actually screamed, a sound that made Gwen's teeth ache, and the carvings flared bright before fading to dull, lifeless gray. Silence. The forest slowly returned to normal. The shadows receded. Birds began singing again, tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence. Naruto stood before the now quiet door, breathing hard, his hand still raised. After a long moment, he lowered it and turned to face the two girls. "You should not have come here." "We didn't mean to," Bridget protested. "The forest just changed. We were following the path and suddenly it wasn't there anymore." Naruto's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "The island has many dangers. Some are obvious. Some are not." He looked at the door. "This is one of the latter." "What was that?" Gwen asked. "What was on the other side?" "A prison. And a prisoner." Naruto's eyes were distant. "One of many beneath this island. Sealed away by powers greater than you can imagine, for crimes greater than you can comprehend. And it almost got out. It almost pulled you in." Naruto's gaze sharpened. "You were meant to be its keys. Its vessels. Its way past the seals." He shook his head. "You are fortunate I arrived when I did." Bridget swallowed hard. "So, the water challenge? Was that a test? Of sorts." Naruto began walking, and the girls hurried to follow. Chris does not understand what sleeps beneath his precious island. He thinks the supernatural elements are props, decorations for his show. He does not realize that every challenge, every disturbance, every drop of emotional energy you produce, it all feeds the hunger below. "Then why don't you stop it?" Gwen demanded. "If you're so powerful, why don't you just leave? Or seal everything away permanently?" Naruto stopped walking. When he turned to face her, his eyes held something she hadn't seen before. Pain. "Because I am not the only power here," he said quietly. "And some of the things beneath this island are family." He continued walking, leaving Gwen and Bridget to stare at each other in shock. Family? What kind of family lived in prisons beneath a reality show island? And more importantly, what kind of creature had a family like that? By sunset, both teams had returned to the mess hall with their collected water. The guys, through sheer quantity, had gathered nearly twice as many bottles as the girls. But when Chris began evaluating quality, the results shifted dramatically. "Let's see, beach water from the North Shore, contaminated with seabird droppings, 0 points. Stream water from the East Forest, clean, but ordinary, 1 point. Pond water from the interior, actually, what is that floating in it? Never mind, 0 points." The guys' scores remained stubbornly low while the girls, despite fewer bottles, accumulated points steadily. Courtney's strategy of targeting specific locations, including a hidden spring that produced water that glowed faintly, had paid off. "Hidden spring water!" Chris announced gleefully. "That's worth 50 points alone. Looks like the fantastic females are our winners." The guys groaned collectively while the girls celebrated. But Gwen couldn't bring herself to join the cheering. Her mind was still on the forest, on the door, on Naruto's words. Some of the things beneath this island are family. She looked toward the edge of the gathering, where Naruto stood in his usual position, watching, always watching. For a moment, their eyes met. Then he turned away, disappearing into the deepening shadows. Above the island, the moon rose pale and cold. And far below, in darkness that had waited centuries, hunger stirred again. The game had truly begun. 3 days into the new season, and Camp Wawanakwa had developed a rhythm. Mornings brought Chris's overblown challenge announcements. Afternoons brought chaos, injury, and the occasional near-death experience. Evenings brought campfire sessions where the campers pretended they weren't all secretly terrified. And always, Naruto watched. He appeared at every challenge, standing at the edges like a silver-haired statue. He never participated, never offered advice, never showed favoritism. But his presence changed everything. Challenges that would have descended into chaos remained orderly. Arguments that would have escalated died under his gaze. Even Duncan, the self-proclaimed rule-breaker, found himself thinking twice before pushing boundaries. "He's like a really hot principal," Lindsay observed during one campfire. "Like if principal was a job for ancient wizard people." "He's not a wizard," Courtney corrected automatically. "He's clearly some kind of supernatural entity with reality warping capabilities. The classification is important." "Whatever he is," Gwen said quietly, "he's not here to help us. He's here to keep something else from killing us." The fire crackled. No one had a good response to that. The fourth challenge arrived with typical Chris McLean fanfare. "Campers!" Chris stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean, arms spread wide. Behind him, the water churned against rocks far below. "Today's challenge is simple. Well, simple in concept. Execution? Less simple. Possibly fatal. But that's what makes good television." Chef Hatchet wheeled forward a cart covered with a tarp. With a dramatic flourish, he yanked the covering away, revealing Bungee cords. Bungee jumping, Chris announced. But not just any bungee jumping. You'll be jumping off this cliff. He gestured to the drop behind him. And attempting to grab flags placed at various heights. The flags are worth different point values. Highest total points wins. Isn't bungee jumping supposed to have, like, safety checks? Trent asked nervously. Oh, we checked. The cords are definitely attached to something. Chris's grin widened. Whether that something is properly anchored? Whether the cords are the right length? Whether anyone's calculated the exact physics of your specific body weight against the tensile strength of these particular ropes. He shrugged. That's the exciting part. Naruto stood at the cliff's edge, gazing down at the churning water. His expression was unreadable, but Gwen thought she saw tension in his shoulders, a wariness that hadn't been there during previous challenges. The water, she murmured to Bridget. Something's wrong with it. Bridget squinted at the waves below. Looks normal to me. I mean rough, but normal. It's not normal. Gwen couldn't explain how she knew. She just did. The water seemed hungry. Waiting. Like the door in the forest had seemed hungry and waiting. Naruto glanced at her, and for just a moment she saw confirmation in his eyes. Then his attention shifted back to the ocean, and the moment passed. The first jump went to Owen, who'd volunteered with his usual enthusiasm. Height has never scared me, he announced, bouncing on the cliff edge. It's the sudden stop at the bottom that's terrifying. But that's what the cord is for, right? Sure, Chris said. Probably. Owen jumped. For a few seconds, everything went perfectly. He plummeted toward the water, arms flailing, screaming with a mixture of terror and joy. The cord played out behind him, and just as he reached the lowest flag, a white cloth worth 10 points, the cord snapped. Not broke. Snapped, as though something had cut it. Owen continued falling. The campers screamed. Chris's grin froze. Chef actually dropped his spatula. And Naruto moved. He was there, at the cliff edge one moment, in the air the next, silver hair streaming behind him like a comet's tail. He caught Owen mid-fall, one arm around the larger boy's chest, and stopped. Just stopped. Hovering in midair, as though gravity had decided to take the day off. Below them, the water churned. Something rose toward the surface, something huge and dark and hungry. Naruto looked down at it, and his eyes blazed gold. No, he said. The word carried power. It rolled across the water like thunder, and the thing below, whatever it was, hesitated. For a long, terrible moment, hunter and hunted stared at each other across the boundary between air and sea. Then the thing sank back into the depths, and the water returned to its normal churning. Naruto floated back up to the cliff, deposited a trembling Owen on solid ground, and landed beside him. His eyes had returned to their normal color, but his expression remained grim. The challenge is over, he announced. No more jumps. Now wait just a minute, Chris started. The challenge is over. Naruto's gaze shifted to the host, and Chris actually took a step back. Unless you wish to explain to your audience why you knowingly allowed children to be eaten by what lives beneath these waters. Chris's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Right, he said finally. Challenge over. Everyone to the mess hall for lunch. Yes. Lunch. Great job, Owen, you caught something. Probably. Moving on. The campers fled the cliff gratefully, leaving only Naruto and Gwen behind. Gwen approached cautiously. What was that? What's down there? Naruto didn't answer immediately. He stood at the cliff's edge, gazing at the water with an expression she couldn't read. My daughter, he said finally. One of them, anyway. Gwen's brain short-circuited. Your daughter? That thing, that monster, is your daughter? Not monster. Child. Naruto's voice held an edge. A child who has been sleeping for millennia, dreaming dreams that should never have been disturbed. Until your show arrived. Until your emotional broadcasts began seeping through barriers that should have held. That's not fair. We didn't choose to come here. We didn't know. I know. Naruto's voice softened. Which is why I protect you. Despite everything. He turned from the cliff. Come. The others need to hear what I have to say. All of it. That night, around the campfire, Naruto told them the truth. My family is old, he began. Older than your civilization. Older than most of your gods. We are dragons, not the winged lizards of your stories, but something far more fundamental. He raised a hand, and fire danced between his fingers, not orange flame, but gold, like liquid sunlight. Once we ruled this world. We shaped mountains, carved rivers, taught the first humans to speak and build and dream. But power corrupts, even dragons. Perhaps especially dragons. Some of my kind grew cruel. They saw humans as playthings, as cattle, as fuel for their endless hungers. The fire in his hand darkened, becoming something sinister. A war followed. Dragon against dragon. The skies burned. The seas boiled. Mountains were leveled and leveled again. In the end, the cruel ones were sealed away, trapped in prisons beneath the earth, beneath the sea, beneath places where no one would think to look. He closed his fist, and the fire vanished. This island is one of those prisons. The largest. The most secure. And the most personal. You imprisoned your own family? Courtney asked, her notepad forgotten. I helped. Yes. Naruto's voice was heavy. They were my siblings. My cousins. My children. And I helped lock them away because the alternative was their destruction, and the destruction of everything they touched. That's horrible, Lindsay whispered. It was necessary. Naruto looked at her, and for once, there was no distance in his eyes. But that does not make it less horrible. Every day, I feel them. Their anger. Their hunger. Their hatred for the one who betrayed them. He paused. Their love, too. Some of them still love me. That is somehow worse. The fire crackled. No one spoke. What woke them? Gwen asked finally. You said something about our emotional broadcasts? Naruto nodded. Reality television is uniquely potent. The concentrated emotions, jealousy, ambition, fear, hope, despair, they resonate. They find cracks in ancient seals and seep through. Your feelings are food for what lies below. And the more you feel, the hungrier they become. So if we just stop feeling things? Noah suggested. Impossible. You are human. Feeling is what you do. Naruto almost smiled. But you can control how you feel. Channel your emotions constructively. Support each other instead of tearing each other down. Build alliances based on trust rather than manipulation. He looked at Heather, who had the grace to appear uncomfortable. The less negative energy you produce, the less food you provide. This is insane, Duncan muttered. We're supposed to change our entire personalities because some ancient dragon lady wants a snack? You're supposed to try. Naruto corrected. The effort itself has power. The attempt to be better, that resonates too. It strengthens the seals instead of weakening them. Another long silence. So, Owen said slowly, if we're nice to each other, we keep the monsters asleep? In simplistic terms. Yes. Owen grinned. I can do that. I'm great at being nice. It's like my whole thing. It's not that simple. Naruto started. But Owen was already on his feet, pulling DJ and Trent into a group hug. Team Nice Guy. That's us. We're going to be so nice the monsters have no choice but to keep sleeping. Naruto watched them for a long moment. Then, very quietly, he said, perhaps it is that simple. Perhaps that's the joke. Gwen moved to sit beside him. You okay? No. The word was honest in a way she hadn't expected. I have not been okay for millennia. But I am functional. He glanced at her. You remind me of someone. A student I once had. She also asked questions I did not want to answer. What happened to her? She grew up. Became someone important. Lived a full life. Naruto's voice softened. She died old and happy, surrounded by family. It was the best gift I could give her. Gwen didn't know what to say to that. Fortunately, she didn't have to. A scream ripped through the night. They found Izzy at the edge of the forest, pointing at something in the trees. Her eyes were wild, her hair somehow even more disheveled than usual, and she was laughing with the particular hysteria of someone who'd just seen something their brain couldn't process. It was beautiful, she shrieked. So beautiful. With wings and eyes and teeth, and it looked at me and smiled, and I smiled back, and then it. What did you see, Izzy? Naruto's voice cut through her panic. A dragon. A little one. Like puppy-sized but definitely dragon. It had scales that changed color, and its eyes were like galaxies, and it said my name. Naruto's expression flickered, surprise, then recognition, then something close to exasperation. Azura, he muttered. What are you doing here? From the shadows, a voice answered, musical, amused, achingly familiar in ways none of the campers could explain. Daddy, you never visit anymore. I got bored. A figure stepped into the firelight. She was young, perhaps 16 in human terms, with silver hair like her father's and eyes that held the depths of space. Small wings, barely larger than a bird's, folded against her back. And in her hands she carried a flute carved from what looked like solidified moonlight. "You must be the campers," she said brightly, completely ignoring her father's expression. "I'm Azura, Naruto's daughter. Well, one of them. There are a lot of us. But I'm the favorite." "You are absolutely not the favorite," Naruto said. "I am too. Mom said so. Your mother says a lot of things when she's trying to get you to sleep." Azura stuck out her tongue, an expression so perfectly teenage that it broke whatever spell had fallen over the campers. Lindsay actually giggled. "She's cute," Lindsay exclaimed. "Like super cute. Not scary at all." "I am very scary when I want to be," Azura protested. "I just don't want to be right now. Wanting to be scary all the time is exhausting. Daddy does it, and look how tired he always is." Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose. "Azura, why are you here?" "I told you. Bored. The seals are getting loose, and everyone's stirring, and Mom's been having those dreams again, you know the ones, and I just needed to do something." She spun to face the campers. "So I'm going to help. With the challenges. Daddy says you have challenges, right? Fun ones? With winners and losers and prizes?" That's not," Chris sputtered, appearing from nowhere with a camera crew in tow. "That's not part of the contract. We can't just have random dragon daughters showing up." "I'm not random. I'm very specifically his daughter," Azura pointed at Naruto. "And you can't stop me from helping. It's in the ancient laws." "There are no ancient laws about reality shows. There are ancient laws about everything. You just don't know them." Azura grinned, and for just a moment, the campers saw something other than a cute teenager in her expression. Something old. Something powerful. Something that had watched civilizations rise and fall. The moment passed. She was just a girl again, bouncing with excitement. "So, what's the next challenge? Can I play? Please, please, please? I promise I'll be good. Mostly good. At least not deliberately destructive." Chris looked at Naruto. Naruto looked at the sky, as though hoping for divine intervention. "I suppose," he said finally. "It cannot hurt. She is bound by the same rules I am. She cannot directly harm you." "Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Azura threw her arms around her father, who stiffened in surprise before, very hesitantly, patting her head. Gwen watched the interaction with dawning understanding. Naruto wasn't just an enforcer or a warden. He was a father. A father who'd imprisoned most of his family and spent millennia watching over their prison. A father whose daughter had just shown up because she was bored. What must that be like? To carry that weight for so long? To have family you loved and feared in equal measure? She didn't know. But she was starting to understand why Naruto looked so tired. The next morning, Chris announced the next challenge with his usual enthusiasm, slightly tempered by the presence of a dragon girl sitting cross-legged on the announcement platform. "Today's challenge is the awake-a-thon," he declared. "Contestants must stay awake longer than anyone else. Last camper standing wins invincibility for their team." "Staying awake?" Noah scoffed. "That's it. After everything we've been through, the challenge is just not sleeping?" "There's a twist, obviously." Chris glanced at Azura, who was trying very hard to look innocent and failing spectacularly. "Naruto's daughter has volunteered to enhance the experience. With music." Azura raised her flute. "I learned this really pretty lullaby. It's ancient. Like super ancient. From before humans had words. It's supposed to make you feel really, really relaxed." "Sounds harmless," Duncan said. Gwen remembered the door in the forest. The thing beneath the waves. The way Naruto had looked at his daughter, with love and wariness in equal measure. "I don't think anything on this island is harmless," she muttered. The campers assembled in the main cabin, now converted into a makeshift sleep arena. Beds lined the walls. Soft lighting replaced the usual harsh production floods. It looked almost comfortable. That should have been the first warning. Azura raised her flute to her lips. The first note hung in the air like dew on a spider's web, delicate, perfect, impossibly beautiful. The second note joined it, weaving patterns that seemed to bypass the ears entirely and speak directly to something deeper. Gwen felt her eyelids grow heavy. Beside her, Owen yawned enormously. Across the room, Lindsay was already slumping against her pillow. "Hey!" Courtney's voice was sharp. "We can't fall asleep. We have to." Another note. Courtney's protest died mid-sentence. Her eyes glazed over. Gwen fought it. She dug her nails into her palms, focused on the pain, tried to remember why staying awake mattered. But the music was everywhere, inside her head, inside her soul, promising rest and peace and the sweet release of unconsciousness. Don't fight it, the music seemed to say. Just let go. Just sleep. Just. No. Naruto's voice cut through the melody like a blade. He stood in the doorway, silver hair wild, eyes blazing gold. Azura. Enough. The music stopped. The campers gasped, jerked back to awareness. Several of them were already asleep, Lindsay, Owen, Tyler, DJ, but the rest clung to consciousness by threads. But Daddy! I was just helping! You were overwhelming them. Naruto strode into the room, checking each camper with gentle touches. They are human. Their minds cannot process that much of your power at once. I tuned it down. A lot. Like way down. Not enough. Naruto's voice softened. I know you want to help. But helping means understanding limitations, yours and theirs. He looked at the conscious campers. The challenge continues. But Azura will play at a fraction of her power. Those who have already fallen asleep are eliminated. That's not fair. Owen protested groggily from his bed. I didn't mean to fall asleep. The challenge is called awake-a-thon. Naruto pointed out. The goal is to stay awake. You failed to meet that goal. You are eliminated. Owen groaned but couldn't argue with the logic. The challenge resumed, gentler this time. Azura played her ancient lullaby at a volume humans could withstand, and the remaining campers fought exhaustion with everything they had. Courtney lasted another hour before succumbing, her organizational skills no match for magic older than language. Heather went next, followed by Justin, then Trent, then Bridget. In the end, only 3 remained, Gwen, Duncan, and a surprisingly resilient Cody, who discovered that thinking about his massive crush on Gwen generated enough anxiety to keep him awake. Getting tired, Gwen? Duncan taunted, though his voice slurred with fatigue. Less tired than you look, jailbird. Please don't fight, Cody whimpered. Fighting makes me nervous and nervous makes me tired and… Another note from Azura's flute. Cody's eyes rolled back in his head. He collapsed sideways, snoring instantly. Gwen and Duncan stared at each other across the suddenly empty space. Just us, Duncan said. Just us. The music swelled. In the end, Gwen won. Not through willpower or strategy, but because Duncan blinked. 1 second he was glaring at her, defiant to the last. The next, his eyes closed, just for a moment, just a fraction of a second, and when they opened again, he was staring at the ceiling with the unfocused gaze of someone who'd lost the battle. Gwen didn't even have time to celebrate. The moment Duncan fell, exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. She was unconscious before she hit the pillow. When she woke, it was morning. Azura was gone. Naruto stood by the window, watching the sunrise. You did well, he said without turning. Better than most. Thanks. Gwen sat up, rubbing her eyes. Where's your daughter? With her mother. I sent her home. A pause. She will return, though. She is stubborn. Like me. Gwen laughed softly. That's not comforting. No. It isn't. Naruto finally turned to face her. But here is what is comforting. You survived. You grew. You faced something beyond your understanding, and you endured. That is the core of humanity. That is why, despite everything, I still believe in you. Gwen didn't know what to say to that. So she said nothing, just sat in the early morning light, watching the silver-haired dragon watch the sunrise. Somewhere beneath the island, something stirred in its sleep. But for now, for this moment, everything was peaceful. The calm before the storm. The aftermath of the awake-a-thon left the campers in a state of strange, disoriented peace. Those who'd fallen asleep early woke with no memory of the previous evening's events, while those who'd fought to the end carried the echo of Azura's music in their bones like a second heartbeat. It's like I can still hear it, Lindsay complained, pressing her hands to her ears. Like, really faintly, but always. Is that normal? For exposure to ancient dragon magic? Noah shrugged. Probably. Wouldn't worry about it. Easy for you to say. You fell asleep in the first 5 minutes. Strategic surrender. I knew I couldn't win, so I conserved my energy for challenges I actually had a chance in. Lindsay squinted at him. That's actually kind of smart. I know. It's exhausting. Chris, meanwhile, was ecstatic. The awake-a-thon had produced some of the highest ratings in total drama history, thanks largely to Azura's unexpected appearance and the genuine terror on the campers' faces when the music started. "We need more of that," he told Chef, practically vibrating with excitement. "More dragon kids! More ancient magic! More near-death experiences that we can spin as thrilling entertainment." Chef grunted. "The dragon guy's not gonna like it. Since when do I care what the help likes? He works for us. He could also turn you into a small pile of ash with a thought." Chris paused. "Valid point. Okay, so we ask nicely. We negotiate. We find out what dragon dads want and we give it to them in exchange for more ratings gold." "What do dragons want?" Chris thought about it. "Probably gold. Or virgins. Do we have any virgins left?" "Pretty sure most of them are, yeah?" "Perfect. We'll offer a virgin sacrifice if Naruto lets his kids visit more often." "I don't think that's how it works." Details. Naruto, meanwhile, was having a very different kind of conversation. "You cannot keep showing up unannounced," he told Azura, who'd reappeared that morning with the casual disregard for boundaries that only a teenage dragon could manage. "It disrupts the balance." "The balance is already disrupted, Daddy. You said so yourself." Azura sat on a rock, swinging her legs. "The seals are weakening. The prisoners are stirring. And the humans are producing more emotional energy than they have in millennia. This island is a powder keg, and you're trying to put out sparks with a thimble of water." "I am doing what I can." "And it's not enough." Azura's voice softened. "I'm not saying this to be cruel. I'm saying it because I want to help. We all want to help. Mom, Auntie, the others, they're worried about you. You've been alone for so long. I chose this. You chose responsibility. There's a difference." She hopped off the rock and approached him, placing a small hand on his arm. "Let us help. Not with everything, just with this. Just with the island and the show and the humans. Let us be your family again." Naruto looked at his daughter, at the girl who'd inherited his silver hair and her mother's stubbornness, who'd grown up in a world he'd barely been part of, who still loved him despite millennia of absence. "One challenge," he said finally. "You may assist with one challenge. And you will follow my rules exactly." "Yes." Azura threw her arms around him. "You won't regret it. I'll be so good. So helpful. You'll see." "I regret it already," Naruto muttered, but he was smiling. The challenge Chris announced that afternoon was deceptively simple: gather ingredients for a magical tea that would supposedly grant great wisdom to whoever drank it. The ingredients were scattered across the island, hidden in locations both mundane and mystical. "First team to collect all 7 ingredients and brew the tea wins," Chris announced. "Losers face elimination." "Sounds easy enough," Duncan said. Gwen shot him a look. "Nothing on this island is easy. Haven't you learned that yet?" The teams split up, guys versus girls, as usual, and began their search. The first few ingredients were straightforward: mint from the mess hall garden, honey from a beehive, which required creative extraction methods, water from the spring Gwen had discovered earlier. Then things got weird. "The next ingredient," Courtney read from her list, "is a tear from the sorrowful spring. What does that even mean?" "It means," said a voice behind them, "that you have found the right place." The campers turned to find Azura standing at the edge of a small clearing. Behind her, a spring bubbled up from the earth, but its waters were dark, almost black, and the sound it made was less like water and more like weeping. "This is the sorrowful spring," Azura explained. "To get a tear from it, someone has to make it cry." "Make a spring cry?" Lindsay asked. "How do you do that?" "You have to understand its sorrow." Azura's expression grew serious. "This spring remembers. It remembers everything, every tear that's ever fallen into it, every sorrow that's ever been shared beside it. To make it cry, you have to give it something it doesn't have, a new sorrow. A fresh grief. Something it's never felt before." "That's dark," Gwen murmured. "It's honest. Sorrow is honest." Azura stepped aside. "I can't help you with this part. It has to be your choice, your grief, your offering. But I'll be here when you're done." The girls gathered around the spring, staring at its dark waters. No one spoke. No one knew what to say. Finally, Bridget stepped forward. "I'll try." She knelt beside the spring, closed her eyes, and thought. Thought about the ocean she loved but couldn't visit. About Jeff, back on the mainland, waiting for her. About the life she'd imagined and the life she was actually living. A single tear slipped down her cheek. It fell into the spring. The water shuddered. Ripples spread outward, and from the depths, a sound emerged, a sigh, ancient and sad and somehow grateful. A single drop of water rose from the surface, glowing faintly with inner light, and floated to hover before Bridget. "The tear," Azura said softly. "You did it." Bridget reached out, and the glowing droplet settled into her palm, cool and warm at the same time. She tucked it carefully into the container they'd brought. "What did you think about?" Lindsay asked quietly. "The ocean," Bridget admitted. "And how much I miss it. And how maybe I've been so focused on what I'm missing that I'm not appreciating what I have." The other girls were silent. Around them, the spring's waters had cleared slightly, as though sharing its sorrow had lightened its burden. "One ingredient down," Courtney said, her voice gentler than usual. 6 to go. The guys' team, meanwhile, was having a very different experience. Their search had led them to a cave, dark, damp, and filled with unsettling echoes. The ingredient they needed was supposedly the breath of the sleeping giant, whatever that meant. "So we just find a giant? And wait for it to breathe?" Owen asked. "I think it's metaphorical," Trent offered. "I don't think anything on this island is metaphorical," Noah said flatly. They pressed deeper into the cave, flashlights cutting through absolute darkness. The walls seemed to pulse with each step, as though the cave itself was breathing. "Guys?" Cody's voice was small. "I don't think we're alone." The flashlights illuminated something ahead, a shape, massive and indistinct, filling the cavern from floor to ceiling. As they watched, it shifted, and a sound like thunder rolled through the space. Snoring. "It's sleeping," Duncan whispered. "The giant is actually sleeping." "So we just take its breath?" Tyler looked doubtful. "How do you even do that?" "Very carefully." They crept closer, hearts pounding. The giant was enormous, easily 30 feet tall, with skin like weathered stone and hair like tangled vines. With each exhale, a gust of wind swept through the cave, warm and smelling of earth. "We need to catch some of that air," Noah realized. "That's the breath. That's the ingredient." "But how? It's just wind." "Containers. We have containers." Duncan pulled out the empty bottles they brought. "We hold them in the airflow when it exhales. Seal them quick." "Done." "That's insane. What if it wakes up?" "Then we run faster than it can catch us." It was, somehow, a solid plan. They positioned themselves around the giant's head, bottles ready, waiting for the next exhale. The giant shifted. Snorted. Opened one eye. "Oh," Owen said. The eye focused on them, slowly, groggily, and then the giant smiled. "Well, well, well," it rumbled, voice like grinding stones. "Little snacks come to visit?" The guys ran. They ran through the cave, through tunnels that seemed to shift and change, the giant's laughter echoing behind them. They ran until they burst out into sunlight, collapsing in a heap at the cave entrance. "We didn't get the ingredient," Trent gasped. "We didn't get eaten," Noah countered. "I call that a win." Behind them, the cave entrance shimmered and vanished, replaced by solid rock. "Guess that's not happening," Duncan muttered. They'd have to find another way. Back at camp, the girls had collected 5 of the 7 ingredients. The sorrowful spring's tear. Moondew from a clearing that only appeared at noon. The whisper of a forgotten thought, which required meditating until one of them actually forgot what they were thinking about, a task Lindsay excelled at. A scale from a dream dragon, Azura had provided this one, plucking it from her own wing with a wince. And the echo of a laugh that had never been finished, Izzy had produced this by laughing mid-sneeze, which apparently counted. 2 remained, the heart flame of a phoenix, and a memory of tomorrow. "The phoenix one sounds dangerous," Heather observed. "It is," Azura agreed. "Phoenixes are born from fire and death. To get a heart flame, you have to witness one being reborn. Which means you have to be there when it dies. Can't we just find one that's already reborn?" "That's not how it works. The heart flame only exists in the moment between death and rebirth. Miss that moment, and you get nothing." The girls looked at each other. This was starting to feel less like a challenge and more like a suicide mission. "Where do we find a phoenix?" Gwen asked. Azura pointed toward the island's center, where a plume of smoke rose from the forest. "There." The fire had been burning for hours by the time they arrived. It consumed everything, trees, undergrowth, even rocks, but somehow never spread beyond a perfectly circular boundary. Inside the circle, flames leaped and danced, and at their center, something burned brighter than the rest. A bird. A bird made of fire, with feathers like living flame and eyes like dying suns. The phoenix. Azura breathed. It's almost time. Time for what? Lindsay asked. As if in answer, the phoenix screamed, a sound of such anguish that the girls clapped hands over their ears. Its fire blazed brighter, hotter, until it was almost too bright to look at. Then it collapsed. The fire died with it, shrinking inward, consuming itself. Within seconds, nothing remained but ash and ember, and at the center, a single spark. The heart flame, Azura said urgently. Now! Someone grab it before it becomes the new phoenix! Gwen moved without thinking. She ran into the ashes, ignoring the residual heat, and reached for the spark. It burned when she touched it. Burned like nothing she'd ever felt, not just physical pain, but something deeper, something that scoured her very soul. She screamed but didn't let go. The spark flared once, twice, and then it was just a flame, small and warm, cupped in her palms. Behind her, the ashes stirred. A new phoenix rose, smaller than the first but growing, its fire gentle rather than destructive. It looked at Gwen with ancient eyes, then launched into the sky, trailing rainbow flames. Gwen stared at her hands. The flame still burned there, but it didn't hurt anymore. It felt like hope given form. You did it, Azura said softly. You really did it. What about the last ingredient? Courtney asked. The memory of tomorrow? Azura smiled. That one's easy. A memory of tomorrow is just a dream, a hope, a wish, something you want so badly you can already remember having it. Any of you have something like that? The girls looked at each other. Slowly, one by one, they nodded. They'd all dreamed. They'd all hoped. They'd all imagined futures so vividly that those futures felt like memories. Then you already have it, Azura said. You've had it all along. The seventh ingredient was inside them. Always had been. The guys never completed their ingredient collection. They spent the rest of the day wandering the island, finding nothing but dead ends and near misses. By sunset, they'd gathered only 3 of the 7 required items, far short of the girls' complete set. That's it then, Chris announced gleefully. Fantastic females win! Which means one of the gigantic guys is going home tonight. At the elimination ceremony, the votes were predictable. Tyler, whose performance in the cave had been less than stellar, received the most marshmallows, or rather, the least. By the time the final marshmallow remained, everyone knew where it was going. Tyler, Chris said, almost gently. The campers have spoken. Your team has spoken. And unfortunately, they've spoken against you. Tyler's face fell. But I tried. I really tried. Trying doesn't win challenges. Results do. Chris shrugged. Boat of losers leaves in 10 minutes. Say your goodbyes. Tyler walked to the dock with heavy steps, Lindsay crying behind him. At the edge of the water, he paused and looked back at the island, at the place that had almost killed him, almost broken him, almost made him something more. Naruto stood at the tree line, watching. You did your best, the dragon said quietly. That counts for something. Does it? I'm still going home. Home isn't failure. Home is where you grow. Where you become who you're meant to be. Naruto's eyes softened. You have potential, Tyler. Don't waste it because one game didn't go your way. Tyler stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Thanks. I think. He stepped onto the boat. The engine sputtered to life. And Tyler, the first elimination of the season, disappeared into the sunset. Behind him, the island waited. The game continued. And somewhere beneath the waves, something hungry stirred in its sleep. The morning after Tyler's elimination dawned gray and heavy, clouds pressing down on the island like a held breath. The campers moved through breakfast in near silence, the reality of the game settling over them like a shroud. He's really gone, Lindsay whispered, pushing her food around her plate. Tyler's really gone. That's how elimination works, Heather said, not unkindly. Someone leaves every time. But he was nice. He did stretches and everything. Nice doesn't win challenges. Results do. Heather paused. That's what Chris said anyway. Gwen watched the exchange without participating. Her hands still tingled where the phoenix's heart flame had burned them, not painfully, but with a warmth that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. She hadn't told anyone about that. Hadn't told them how she could sometimes see flames flicker at the edges of her vision, or how she felt drawn to fire in ways she'd never experienced before. Something had changed in her during that challenge. Something fundamental. Gwen? Bridget sat beside her. You okay? You've been zoning out all morning. Fine. Just thinking. About what? About the fire inside me. About the thing that burned but didn't consume. About how I'm not sure I'm entirely human anymore. Nothing important. Bridget didn't look convinced, but she let it go. That was one of the things Gwen appreciated about her. She knew when to push and when to back off. The day's challenge was announced with typical Chris McLean fanfare, a massive obstacle course spanning the entire island, with traps, twists, and surprises at every turn. But here's the twist, Chris grinned. You're not competing individually today. You're competing in pairs, one guy, one girl, working together. The last pair to finish gets sent to elimination, where one of them will be voted off. Pairs? Courtney's eyes lit up. That means strategy. That means coordination. That means I'm stuck with someone. Duncan finished. Great. The pairings were drawn randomly. Gwen with Cody. Cody's joy was almost painful to witness. Heather with Duncan. Both looked horrified. Lindsay with Owen. Surprisingly wholesome. Bridget with Trent. Natural, given their mutual friends. Izzy with Noah. Noah's expression suggested he was already planning his funeral. And Courtney with DJ. Courtney immediately began issuing orders. And our special guest observer today, Chris added, is none other than Azura, who has promised to behave herself. Azura waved from a nearby tree, where she'd perched like an oversized bird. I'll be good. Probably. Mostly. Naruto, standing at the course's starting line, pinched the bridge of his nose. The course is dangerous, he warned. More dangerous than usual. The island is restless today. Something has agitated the seals. What kind of something? Gwen asked. Naruto's gaze swept across the campers, lingering on Gwen for just a moment too long. I don't know yet. But be careful. All of you. The starting horn blared. The course was chaos from the beginning. Mud pits that seemed to grab at ankles. Rope swings that deposited contestants in unexpected locations. Walls that grew taller the longer you tried to climb them. And everywhere, the sense of being watched, not by cameras, but by something older, hungrier. Gwen and Cody made surprisingly good time. Cody, despite his constant nervousness, was agile and quick, while Gwen's newfound connection to fire helped her spot hidden dangers before they struck. You're different, Cody observed as they navigated a series of swinging logs. Like since the Phoenix thing. You're more aware? I guess. Gwen dodged a log that would have flattened her. It's hard to explain. You don't have to explain. I get it. Cody grinned. You're evolving. Like a Pokemon. Despite everything, Gwen laughed. Thanks. I think. They pressed on, passing Heather and Duncan, who were arguing so intensely they'd forgotten to actually move, Lindsay and Owen, who were having the time of their lives somehow, and Bridget and Trent, who worked together with the easy rhythm of long friendship. Only Izzy and Noah were ahead of them, and that was mostly because Izzy had decided that obstacles are suggestions, and was simply ignoring anything that got in her way. Noah clung to her back, eyes closed, praying to gods he didn't believe in. We're doing great, Izzy shouted as she leaped over a 10-foot wall. This is fun. I'm going to die, Noah muttered. I'm going to die on a reality show, killed by an obstacle course and a crazy person. This is how it ends. You're not going to die, Izzy assured him. Probably. That's not comforting. Halfway through the course, things went wrong. It started with a tremor, barely noticeable at first, just a slight vibration in the ground. Then the vibration grew, became shaking, became something that felt like the island itself was trying to throw them off. What's happening? Lindsay cried, clinging to Owen. The seals, Azura breathed, her playful demeanor vanishing. Something's breaking through. From the center of the island, a sound emerged. Not a roar, not a scream, but something worse, laughter. Deep, mocking, ancient laughter that seemed to come from everywhere at once. No. Naruto's voice cut through the chaos. Not now. Not yet. He moved, faster than eyes could follow, toward the sound source. Azura followed, her wings spreading, her face set in determination. The campers were left alone in the shaking, laughing chaos. We need to keep moving, Courtney shouted over the noise. The challenge. Forget the challenge. Gwen grabbed her arm. Something's happening. Something bad. We need to stick together. Since when are you in charge? Since I'm the one who can feel that thing getting closer. Courtney opened her mouth to argue, but the ground beneath them split open. A chasm yawned, separating the campers, forcing them onto opposite sides. Gwen found herself with Cody, Lindsay, and Owen on one side. The others were on the other side, the chasm growing wider by the second. "We have to jump!" Cody shouted. "We can't. It's too wide." From the chasm's depths, something rose. Not a creature, not yet. Just a presence, a weight, an awareness that pressed against their minds like thumbs against soft fruit. "Children," a voice whispered directly in their thoughts. "Little children, playing games on my prison. How delicious." "What is that?" Lindsay whimpered. "I am what your guardian fears. I am what sleeps beneath. I am the rage he locked away when he chose his precious humans over his own blood." Naruto's family, Gwen realized. One of the imprisoned dragons. Clever child. Yes. I am his brother. His older brother. The one he betrayed. The presence pressed harder, and images flooded Gwen's mind, a world burning, dragons fighting, the sky itself tearing apart. She saw Naruto, younger but still recognizable, standing against a creature of shadow and flame. Saw him weep as he spoke the words of sealing. Saw the creature, his brother, screaming with rage and heartbreak as the prison closed around him. "He cried when he did it," the voice continued, almost thoughtfully. "Cried for me, his brother, his ally, his friend. And then he locked me away for 10,000 years. You attacked humans," Gwen gasped. "You were killing them." "They were insects. Less than insects. Their lives meant nothing. Not to Naruto. Not to the humans who loved him." "Ah. Yes. His precious will of fire. His belief that even the smallest life has value." The presence laughed again. "Tell me, child. Do you believe that? After everything you've seen? After everything you've become?" Gwen thought about the phoenix's heart flame, still burning inside her. Thought about Tyler, eliminated and gone. Thought about all the campers, fighting and failing and trying anyway. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I do." The presence was silent for a long moment. "Interesting," it said finally. "Perhaps there is more to you insects than I thought." The pressure lifted. The chasm stopped growing. The laughter faded, replaced by the normal sounds of the island, birds, wind, waves. And Naruto stood before them, breathing hard, his eyes blazing gold. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "Did he touch you?" "We're okay," Gwen assured him. "He just talked. Showed me things." Naruto's expression flickered. "What did he show you?" "The truth. About you. About him. About what happened." For a long moment, Naruto just stared at her. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Then you understand more than most. More than I would have wished." He turned to the others. "The challenge is over. Go back to camp. I need to speak with Gwen alone." "But," Lindsay started. "Now." They went. Gwen and Naruto stood at the edge of the chasm, looking down into darkness. "My brother," Naruto said quietly. "His name was Ryujin once. Before the rage consumed him. Before he forgot what it meant to be family." "What happened?" "The same thing that happens to all of us, eventually." Naruto's voice was heavy. "We lived too long. Saw too much. The humans we'd guided and protected, they grew, changed, forgot us. Built civilizations that worshipped other gods, told other stories. We became relics. Monsters in fairy tales. And that made him angry. It made him hungry. Not for food, for meaning. For purpose. He decided that if humans wouldn't remember us willingly, he would make them remember through fear. Through fire and death." Naruto closed his eyes. "I tried to reason with him. For centuries I tried. But in the end, reason failed. All that remained was the seal." "You imprisoned your own brother." "I imprisoned my own brother." Naruto opened his eyes, and Gwen saw tears in them, ancient tears, held back for millennia. "And every day since, I have wondered if I did the right thing. If there was another way. If I failed him as a brother." Gwen didn't know what to say. What could you say to someone carrying that weight? So instead, she reached out and took his hand. The touch sent something through her, not fire this time, but warmth. Acceptance. Understanding. And beneath it all, a flicker of something she recognized. Hope. "You didn't fail him," she said quietly. "You did what you had to. What love sometimes forces us to do." Naruto stared at their joined hands. Then, slowly, he smiled. "You remind me of someone," he said. "A student I once had. She also had a habit of saying exactly what I needed to hear. What happened to her? She grew up. Became someone important. Changed the world. He squeezed her hand gently. I think you will too. They returned to camp to find chaos. The other campers, separated by the chasm, had finally reunited, but not before tensions had boiled over. Heather and Duncan were arguing loudly, Courtney was making lists of who to blame, and Lindsay was crying because she'd lost a shoe. The elimination! Chris announced as Naruto and Gwen arrived. We still have an elimination. The last pair to finish was Heather and Duncan, which means one of you is going home. Finally, Duncan muttered. Get me out of here. You can't just want to be eliminated, Heather protested. That's not how this works. Watch me. The voting was swift. Heather, with her history of manipulation and her current inability to work with anyone, received the majority of votes. Duncan, despite his attitude, was too useful as a physical competitor to lose. Heather, Chris said, almost gleefully. The campers have spoken. You're out. Heather's face went through several expressions: shock, disbelief, fury, and finally a cold, controlled mask. Fine, she said. This game was beneath me anyway. She walked to the boat with her head held high, not looking back. But as she passed Naruto, she paused. You, she said quietly. You're not what I thought. None of this is. She met his eyes. Watch out for them. The others. They're not as strong as they think. Naruto nodded. I know. Heather stepped onto the boat. The engine started, and another camper disappeared into the sunset. Behind her, the island settled into uneasy peace. But beneath it, in darkness that remembered rage, Ryujin smiled. The game was far from over. Heather's elimination should have simplified things. One less schemer, one less source of conflict, one less variable in an already chaotic equation. Instead, it seemed to have the opposite effect. Everything's worse now, Duncan observed, watching the remaining campers argue over breakfast. Like, objectively worse. How is that possible? Because Heather was a target, Noah explained, not looking up from his book. She absorbed negativity like a sponge. Without her, we're all just bouncing our neuroses off each other with no buffer. That's actually kind of deep. I have moments. The campers had settled into an uneasy routine. Mornings brought challenges, afternoons brought chaos, evenings brought campfire counseling sessions where Naruto occasionally offered cryptic advice. Azura had become a permanent fixture, flitting between campers with the enthusiasm of a puppy and the power of a demigod. Today's challenge, Chris announced, bouncing onto the platform, is something special, something magical, something that will change the game forever. He held up a flute. Not just any flute. This one seemed to glow with inner light, its surface carved with symbols that shifted when viewed directly. The magical flute, Chris proclaimed. Won by the fantastic females in the awake-a-thon. And now, it's time to use it. Use it how? Lindsay asked. Simple. The flute can summon one member of Naruto's family to assist you in today's challenge. One of his daughters, Azura you've met, or one of his other relatives. But choose wisely, because once summoned, they're committed for the entire challenge. The girls huddled together, debating. Azura is helpful, Courtney said. But we already know her. Maybe we should try someone else? Who else is there? Bridget asked. Atlanta, a voice said behind them. They turned to find Naruto standing nearby, expression carefully neutral. My niece. Legendary archer. Hunter of monsters. She owes me a favor. Your niece? Gwen raised an eyebrow. How many relatives do you have? More than I care to count. Less than I wish I could see. He paused. Atlanta is intense. But loyal. If you summon her, she will protect you. Sounds good to me, Lindsay said. Anyone who protects us is okay in my book. But the flute, Courtney mused. How does it work? Do we just play it and she appears? Something like that. The girls looked at each other. Then, carefully, Lindsay raised the flute to her lips and blew. The note that emerged was unlike anything they'd heard before, not music, exactly, but something older. A call. A summons. A request that the universe itself could not ignore. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air split open. She stepped through the rift like she owned it, tall and proud, with hair the color of autumn leaves and eyes that gleamed like a hawk's. A bow was slung across her back, and at her hip hung a quiver full of arrows that seemed to shimmer with inner light. You called? Her voice was warm, amused, and slightly dangerous. Atlanta! Azura appeared from nowhere, launching herself at the newcomer. You came! Of course I came. Your father called in his favor. Atlanta hugged her cousin briefly, then turned to survey the campers. So these are the humans? The ones causing all the trouble? We're not causing trouble, Lindsay protested. We're just existing. Competitively. Atlanta laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine. I like her. She's honest. She's also terrible at challenges, Courtney muttered. Then I'll just have to help her be less terrible. Atlanta unslung her bow, testing the string. What's the challenge? Dodgeball, Chris announced, appearing with his usual lack of timing. But not just any dodgeball. Explosive dodgeball. The balls explode on impact. Don't get hit. Explosive dodgeball. Atlanta's eyes lit up. Finally, a challenge worthy of my skills. The dodgeball arena was set up on the beach, a massive court marked by ropes, with bleachers for eliminated campers who'd been invited back to watch. Tyler and Heather sat in the front row, their expressions a mixture of jealousy and schadenfreude. All right, teams, Chris shouted. Guys versus girls, as usual. But this time, the girls have a ringer. Atlanta took her position at the front of the girls' team, bow in hand. Don't worry about defense, she told them. I'll handle any balls that come our way. You focus on offense. And what about their offense? Gwen asked. Atlanta smiled. That's what I'm for. The first ball flew, a red blur aimed directly at Lindsay's head. Atlanta moved faster than eyes could follow, an arrow knocked and loosed in the same motion. The arrow met the ball mid-flight, and both exploded in a shower of sparks. Holy! Duncan started. Another ball. Another arrow. Another explosion. The guys quickly realized they had a problem. Every ball they threw was intercepted before it could reach its target. Meanwhile, the girls were pelting them with throws of their own, slowly but surely eliminating them one by one. This is ridiculous, Cody yelped as a ball caught him in the shoulder. How are we supposed to compete with that? Adapt, Noah suggested, already eliminated and watching from the sidelines. Or die trying. Your choice. Duncan grabbed a ball and wound up to throw, not at a girl, but at Atlanta herself. If he could take out their protector, the rest would be easy. The ball flew straight and true. Atlanta didn't even look. She caught it one-handed, stared at Duncan with something like amusement, and threw it back, harder than any human could have managed. Duncan dove. The ball exploded where he'd been standing. Nice try, Atlanta called. Almost had me. Almost? Duncan sputtered. I didn't even come close. Exactly. The game continued, the girls slowly but surely eliminating the guys one by one. By the time the final buzzer sounded, only Duncan remained, and he was cornered, surrounded by triumphant females. Concede, Atlanta suggested. It's less embarrassing. I don't concede. Duncan grabbed the last ball and hurled it with all his strength. Atlanta sighed, raised her bow, and loosed an arrow. The explosion was spectacular. When the smoke cleared, Duncan lay flat on his back, covered in soot but somehow unharmed. Good game, Atlanta said, offering him a hand up. Duncan stared at her hand, then at her face, then took it. You're insane. You know that? Absolutely. She pulled him to his feet. It runs in the family. That night, around the campfire, Atlanta told stories of her adventures, hunting monsters in ancient Greece, racing heroes across mythical landscapes, arguing with gods about the proper way to skin a chimera. You actually met Zeus? Cody asked, eyes wide. Met him, argued with him, outran him once. Atlanta grinned. He was surprisingly graceful about losing. For a god. What about the other dragons? Gwen asked quietly. Your family. The ones in prison here. Atlanta's smile faded. What about them? Do you ever visit them? Talk to them? They're asleep. Have been for millennia. And even if they weren't, she shook her head. Some wounds don't heal. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. My uncle, your guardian, he did what he had to. But that doesn't mean the rest of us have to like it. But their family. Family is complicated. Atlanta met Gwen's eyes. You'll learn that if you haven't already. Gwen thought about her own family, distant, disapproving, never quite understanding her. She thought about the campers, who'd become something like family despite everything. She thought about Naruto, carrying the weight of his choices for millennia. Yeah, she said quietly. I'm starting to. The next morning, Atlanta was gone. In her place, a small token rested on the girl's cabin doorstep, a single arrow, fletched with feathers that shimmered in the light. For luck, a note read. Use it when things get desperate. You'll know when. Awesome! Lindsay hugged the arrow carefully. We have a magic arrow now! It's not magic, Courtney said. It's just an arrow. It's from a dragon hunter. That's basically magic. Courtney opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. In this place, on this island, maybe Lindsay was right. Maybe everything was magic now. The island had changed. Everyone felt it, a shift in the air, a weight in the atmosphere, a sense that something was building toward an inevitable climax. Even Chris seemed subdued, his usual manic energy tempered by something approaching actual concern. Maybe we should ease up, he suggested to Chef. Just for a day or two. Let things cool down. Chef stared at him. Did you just suggest being reasonable? I know, it's unprecedented. But the ratings are great, the drama is amazing, and I'd really like to not be eaten by an ancient dragon god. Is that too much to ask? Weakness, Chef grunted. But fine. One day of easy challenges. Then back to chaos. The easy challenge turned out to be a talent show. Campers would perform something, anything, and be judged by a panel consisting of Chris, Chef, and Azura, who'd volunteered with suspicious enthusiasm. A talent show! Lindsay clapped her hands. I can do that. I'm talented at lots of things. Name one, Noah said. Being pretty. That's not a talent. That's genetics. Being pretty is a talent when you work at it as hard as I do. The campers scattered to prepare, leaving Gwen alone with her thoughts. She hadn't told anyone about the changes she was experiencing, the sensitivity to fire, the strange dreams, the growing sense that she was becoming something other than human. But maybe, in a talent show, she could explore that. Test her limits. See what she'd become. She found a quiet spot near the beach, away from the others, and sat cross-legged in the sand. The phoenix's heart flame still burned inside her, warm and constant. She reached for it, gently, the way she might reach for a memory. Fire answered. It flickered in her palm, small at first, then growing, until a ball of flame the size of her head hovered above her hand. It didn't burn. It didn't even feel hot. It just was, perfect and golden in hers. Impressive. Gwen startled, the fire vanishing. Naruto stood at the edge of the beach, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Sorry, she said. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. He moved closer, settling onto the sand beside her. The Phoenix's gift chose you for a reason. You should explore it. Is that what this is? A gift? A responsibility, more accurately. Naruto gazed out at the water. The Phoenix doesn't give its flame lightly. Those who carry it become connected. To fire, yes, but also to renewal. To rebirth. To the cycle of death and life that underpins everything. That sounds heavy. It is. He glanced at her. But you're heavier than you know, Gwen. Stronger. More capable. The flame just reveals what was always there. Gwen didn't know what to say to that. So instead, she asked a question that had been bothering her for days. Why us? Why this island, these campers, this ridiculous show? You could be anywhere, doing anything. Why spend your time watching teenagers play games? Naruto was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Because I was alone for so long. Millennia of solitude, watching the world change, watching everyone I loved either die or be sealed away. And then this show came, this ridiculous, chaotic, utterly human disaster, and suddenly there was life again. Noise. Emotion. Connection. He almost smiled. It's exhausting and frustrating and occasionally terrifying. But it's also the most alive I've felt in 10,000 years. So you stay because we entertain you? I stay because you remind me why I fought. Why I sealed my family away. Why I chose humanity over my own kind. He met her eyes. Because you're worth protecting. All of you. Even when you're at your worst. The talent show that evening was, predictably, chaos. Lindsay performed a fashion show featuring outfits she'd constructed from leaves and vines. Courtney delivered a lecture on strategic planning that put half the audience to sleep. Duncan played drums on various objects, producing a surprisingly compelling rhythm. Owen ate an entire cake in under a minute, earning thunderous applause. But it was Gwen's performance that changed everything. She walked to the center of the makeshift stage, nervous but determined. The other campers watched curiously, unsure what to expect. I'm going to do something, she said quietly. I'm not sure what it is yet, but I'm going to try. She closed her eyes and reached for the flame. It answered eagerly, flooding through her veins, filling her with warmth and light. When she opened her eyes, they glowed gold. Fire erupted around her, not destroying, not consuming, just being. It spiraled upward in columns, wove itself into patterns, danced to music only Gwen could hear. The campers gasped, stumbled back, then stared in wonder as the fire took shape. A phoenix. A phoenix made of pure flame, spreading its wings above Gwen's head. Whoa! Lindsay breathed. The phoenix soared, trailing sparks that fizzled out before they could land. It circled the clearing once, twice, then dove back toward Gwen, and vanished into her chest. Silence. Gwen stood in the center of the stage, breathing hard, her eyes slowly returning to normal. That, Chris said finally, was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You win. Everyone wins. That was incredible. The campers erupted in applause. Even Heather, watching from the bleachers, looked genuinely impressed. Gwen barely heard them. Her attention was on Naruto, who stood at the edge of the crowd with an expression she couldn't read. Pride, maybe? And something else. Worry. Later that night, Azura found Gwen sitting alone by the water. That was beautiful, the dragon girl said, settling beside her. The phoenix really chose well. Thanks. Gwen hugged her knees. I still don't really understand what's happening to me. You're becoming. That's all. Azura tilted her head. The phoenix flame doesn't change you, it reveals you. Shows you what you've always been underneath. The fire, the passion, the ability to rise from ashes. She paused. You've been through a lot, haven't you? Before the show, I mean. Gwen was silent for a moment. Then, quietly, she nodded. My parents never understood me. School was a nightmare. I didn't have friends, really, just acquaintances. People who tolerated me because I was useful or convenient. She laughed bitterly. Coming here, to this insane island, was supposed to be an escape. A chance to be someone different. And instead, you became more yourself than ever. Something like that. Azura bumped her shoulder gently. For what it's worth, I think that's amazing. Most humans spend their whole lives running from who they are. You ran toward it. Or fell into it accidentally. Same thing, really. They sat in companionable silence, watching the waves. Above them, stars wheeled in patterns that had existed since before humanity's first dreams. I'm scared, Gwen admitted. Of what I'm becoming. Of what it means. Fear is natural. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and choosing to act anyway. Azura smiled. My father taught me that. He's been afraid for 10,000 years, and he's still here, still fighting, still protecting. That's courage. Gwen thought about Naruto, about the weight he carried, the choices he'd made, the family he'd lost and the family he'd chosen. If he could keep going after all that, maybe she could too. Thanks, she said, for listening. Anytime. Azura stood, stretching her small wings. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's challenge is apparently extreme ironing and I have no idea what that means. Gwen laughed, a real laugh, light and free. Extreme ironing? That's what Chris said. Something about ironing boards on cliffs. Azura shrugged. Humans are weird. Yeah, Gwen agreed. We really are. Extreme ironing turned out to be exactly what it sounded like. Contestants had to iron clothing while suspended over dangerous locations. The guys' team ironed on a cliff face. The girls' team ironed on a rickety platform above shark-infested waters. This is insane, Lindsay screamed, pressing an iron to a shirk while dangling from a rope. Welcome to Total Drama, Chris shouted back cheerfully. The girls won, mostly because Courtney had somehow researched extreme ironing techniques and developed a comprehensive strategy. The guys, forced to improvise, ended up with wrinkled clothes and bruised egos. Not fair, Duncan grumbled. She had a plan. Who plans for extreme ironing? Courtney plans for everything, Noah said. Including, presumably, the apocalypse. That's actually kind of hot. Please never say that again. That evening's celebration was interrupted by an unexpected arrival. The sky tore, not gently, like when Atlanta arrived, but violently, like something forcing its way through against all resistance. From the rift stepped a figure that made even Naruto tense. She was beautiful, in the way that hurricanes were beautiful. Tall and imperious, with hair like spun moonlight and eyes that held the cold of deep space. A crown of stars hovered above her head, and in her hands she carried something that looked like a sandwich. "Dinner," she announced, "is served." "Celine." Naruto's voice was carefully controlled. "What are you doing here?" "Bringing gifts, brother. Is that not allowed?" She held up the sandwich. "The brood witch. Forged in darkness from wheat that never grew, baked in ovens that never heated, assembled by hands that never touched. One bite, and you experience the combined torments of 1,000 damned souls." "That's a sandwich?" Owen asked. "A very special sandwich." Celine smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "I thought your little humans might enjoy it. As a treat." "No." Naruto stepped forward. "They will not eat that." "Why not? Are they too weak? Too fragile?" Celine's eyes glittered. "Or are you too protective, as always?" "I am protective because I have to be. These children are under my care." "Children?" Celine laughed. "They're teenagers, Naruto. Old enough to make their own choices. Old enough to face the consequences." She held out the brood witch. "So, who's brave enough to take a bite?" Silence. Then, incredibly, Izzy stepped forward. "I'll do it." "Izzy, no!" Several campers shouted at once. "Izzy, yes!" Izzy grabbed the brood witch and took a massive bite before anyone could stop her. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Izzy's eyes went wide. Her face cycled through approximately 47 expressions in 3 seconds. She opened her mouth, and a stream of pure chaos erupted forth. Butterflies, lightning bolts, strange symbols, and what appeared to be a small opera singer emerged from her lips, swirling around her in a tornado of insanity. "Delicious!" Izzy shouted, and took another bite. The chaos intensified. Izzy's hair changed color 7 times. Her clothes transformed into something from a different century. She grew wings, lost them, grew tentacles, lost those too. That's amazing," Lindsay whispered. "It's terrifying," Courtney corrected. "Same thing." Celine watched with satisfaction. "See? The brood witch chooses its victims wisely. This one, she embraces the chaos. She doesn't fight it. That's why she survives." Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose. "Celine, return the brood witch to wherever you found it. Now." "But brother." "Now." Celine pouted, an expression that looked profoundly wrong on her ancient face, but waved her hand. The brood witch vanished from Izzy's grip, and the chaos slowly subsided. Izzy stood in the center of the clearing, panting but grinning. "Best sandwich ever," she declared, and collapsed. While Izzy recovered, Celine explained her presence. "The seals are weakening faster than we thought," she told Naruto quietly. "The prisoners are stirring. Ryujin especially. He's been pushing against his bonds for weeks. If something doesn't change, he'll break free entirely." "How long do we have?" "Days. Maybe less." Celine's expression softened. "I came to warn you. And to offer help if you'll accept it." Naruto studied his sister, the sister who'd chosen neutrality during the Great War, who'd watched from the sidelines as their family tore itself apart. For her to offer help now. "Why?" he asked. "After all this time, why intervene?" "Because I'm tired of losing family." Celine met his eyes. "I lost Ryujin to his rage. I lost the others to their prisons. I don't want to lose you too." Naruto was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Then help. But on my terms. These humans are not pawns to be sacrificed." "I understand." They clasped forearms, an ancient gesture, older than humanity, older than most stars. The alliance was formed. The next morning, Chris announced the next challenge with even more enthusiasm than usual. "Campers! Today's challenge is special. So special that we've invited back some eliminated contestants to participate." He gestured, and Tyler, Heather, and several others emerged from the trees. "It's a scavenger hunt. But not just any scavenger hunt, a mythological scavenger hunt. Items you'll need to find include a griffin feather, a unicorn tear, and the golden apple of discord." "Those exist?" Cody asked. "On this island? Everything exists." Chris grinned. "Probably. Maybe. We'll find out." The campers split into teams, mixed with eliminated contestants. Gwen found herself paired with Heather and Cody, an uncomfortable combination at best. "I don't like this any more than you do," Heather said flatly. "But we have to work together. So let's just get it over with." "Agreed." Gwen started walking. The griffin feather first. Any idea where to find griffins? Mountains? Cody suggested. They're usually in mountains, right? This island doesn't have mountains. It has something. Those cliffs we iron on. Worth a try. They headed for the cliffs, the uneasy silence between them slowly thawing into something approaching tolerance. The cliffs were as treacherous as they remembered, sheer drops, crumbling edges, and wind that seemed determined to push them off. But as they climbed higher, they spotted something promising, a nest built into a crevice, lined with feathers. Griffin nest, Heather breathed. Okay. We need one feather. We grab it and go. What about the griffin? Cody asked nervously. What about it? Won't it be, in the nest? As if on cue, a massive shape launched from the cliff above them. Wings spread, lion's body tensed, eagle's head screamed a challenge. Run! Gwen shouted. They ran. The griffin chased them across the cliffs, talons scraping stone, beak snapping inches from their heels. Heather grabbed a loose feather from the nest as they passed, not waiting, just snatching, and kept moving. Down the cliff, across the beach, into the forest. The griffin pursued relentlessly, clearly offended by the theft. Split up! Gwen yelled. It can't chase all of us. They scattered. The griffin hesitated, then chose Heather, probably because she had the feather, and dove after her. Heather ran like she'd never run before. She crashed through undergrowth, leaped over logs, ducked under branches. The griffin gained anyway, its shadow falling over her, its scream deafening. And then it was gone. Heather collapsed, gasping, and looked back. The griffin had stopped at the tree line, pacing angrily but not crossing. Something about the forest's edge kept it at bay. The seals, she realized. The forest is protected. Smart girl. Heather spun. Celine stood nearby, watching with something like approval. You used the environment. You understood the griffin's limitations. That's more than most humans manage. Thanks. I think. Heather clutched the feather. What now? Now you find the next item. The unicorn tear. Celine smiled. That one will be harder. Unicorns don't cry easily. The unicorn tear required a different approach entirely. Unicorns, they discovered, lived in a hidden grove deep in the forest. They were beautiful, graceful, and utterly indifferent to human presence. No amount of pleading, bargaining, or threatening produced any reaction. They don't care, Heather realized. They literally don't care about us at all. How do we make one cry then? Cody asked. You don't make them. You earn their tears. Celine had followed them, apparently finding this entertaining. Unicorns cry only for genuine beauty. True kindness. Selfless acts. Things your species claims to value but rarely practices. So we have to be good? Essentially. Heather and Gwen looked at each other. Of all the challenges they'd faced, this might be the hardest. Hours later, exhausted and frustrated, they stumbled upon the answer by accident. A small creature, a fox maybe, or something like one, had gotten its leg caught in a tangle of roots. It whimpered pitifully, unable to free itself. Cody, without thinking, knelt and began working the roots loose. The fox watched him with wary eyes but didn't bite. There you go, Cody murmured, finally freeing the creature. All better. The fox limped away, pausing once to look back at him. Then it vanished into the undergrowth. From the trees, a unicorn emerged. It approached slowly, gracefully, and stopped before Cody. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Then, very gently, the unicorn lowered its head and nuzzled him. A single tear slid down its cheek. Cody caught it carefully in the container they'd brought, his hands trembling. I did it. You were kind, Celine said softly. Without thought of reward. Without expectation. That is true beauty. She looked at Heather and Gwen. You chose well, letting him lead. Sometimes the smallest hearts hold the greatest capacity for goodness. Cody beamed. Heather and Gwen exchanged glances, not quite friendly, but no longer hostile. One item down. 2 to go. The golden apple of discord was, ironically, the easiest to find and the hardest to obtain. It hung from a tree in the center of the island, glowing with inner light. But around the tree, a dozen creatures circled, mythological beasts of every description, all watching the apple with hungry eyes. We'll never get past them, Heather said. We don't have to. Gwen studied the scene. Look, they're not cooperating. They're all waiting for someone else to make a move. So? So we cause chaos. Create an opening. Then grab and run. How do we cause chaos? Gwen smiled. Leave that to me. She stepped into the clearing and raised her hands. Fire erupted around her, not attacking, just there, bright and hot and impossible to ignore. The creatures turned, startled, and in that moment of distraction, Heather darted forward. She grabbed the apple. The creatures roared in outrage and charged, but Gwen was already moving, fire spiraling behind her like a wall. Heather ran, apple clutched to her chest, Cody right behind her. They burst from the clearing and kept running, not stopping until they reached the safety of the camp. We did it, Heather gasped, holding up the apple. We actually did it. We did it together, Gwen corrected. Heather looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Together. That night, Chris declared the challenge a tie. All teams had collected all 3 items, though by different means. The real victory, he announced, was the character growth they'd all shown. Which means, he added, no elimination tonight. Everyone gets to stay. Cheers erupted. Even Heather smiled, a small, genuine smile that transformed her entire face. Celine watched from the shadows, arms crossed. Naruto moved to stand beside her. They did well, she admitted. Better than I expected. Humans often do, when given the chance. Naruto glanced at his sister. Thank you? For helping. I didn't help. I observed. A pause. But I'm glad I came. They stood together, watching the celebrating campers, and for the first time in millennia, something like peace settled between them. The seals still weakened. Ryujin still pushed. But tonight, at least, there was joy. It would have to be enough. The morning after the scavenger hunt brought an unexpected gift, a full day with no challenges. Chris, in a move that shocked everyone, announced that the campers deserved a rest. Even I know when to push and when to pull back, he said, ignoring Chef's skeptical look. So today, do whatever you want. Explore. Relax. Make out in the woods. I don't care. Just be back by dinner. The campers scattered like leaves in wind, eager to escape the constant pressure of competition. Some headed for the beach. Some stayed in camp, napping or reading. And some, inevitably, decided to explore. Gwen found herself walking with Cody, who had attached himself to her with the desperate hope of a boy who still hadn't given up on his crush. This is nice, Cody said, trying too hard to be casual. Just walking. In the woods. Together. It's walking, Cody. That's all. Right. Walking. Totally normal walking. Nothing romantic about it. Gwen sighed but didn't discourage him. Cody's crush was harmless, and honestly, after everything they'd been through, his company wasn't unwelcome. The forest was beautiful in the morning light, greener than seemed possible, filled with sounds of birds and small creatures. For a while, they just walked, enjoying the peace. Then the trees changed. It was subtle at first, a shift in the quality of light, a difference in the sounds around them. But then the path they'd been following simply vanished, replaced by dense undergrowth that hadn't been there moments before. Cody, Gwen said quietly. Don't panic, but I think we're lost. We're what? Lost. As in, no idea where we are. As in, the forest just rearranged itself around us. Cody's face went pale. That's not possible. On this island? Everything's possible. Gwen looked around, trying to spot any landmark. We need to keep moving. Find higher ground, get our bearings. They walked for what felt like hours, the forest shifting around them with each step. Paths appeared and disappeared. Trees moved when they weren't looking. The sun, visible one moment, vanished the next. We're being herded, Gwen realized. Something's guiding us somewhere. Should we stop? Try to go back? Wouldn't help. Whatever's doing this, it's stronger than we are. We have to play along until we figure out what it wants. They continued, nerves fraying, until they stumbled into a clearing that felt different. The air here was still, heavy with expectation. And in the center of the clearing, waiting for them, stood a figure they'd never seen before. She was tall, taller than any human, taller even than Naruto. Her skin was the color of new bronze, her hair a cascade of night sky sprinkled with stars. A bow hung at her back, and at her feet, a pack of massive hounds lounged with predatory contentment. Welcome, she said, her voice like honey over thunder. I've been waiting. Who are you? Gwen demanded. I am Atlanta's mother. I am the huntress. I am the one who taught your guardian everything he knows about tracking, about hunting, about the thin line between predator and prey. She smiled, and it was not a kind smile. I am also, apparently, the one who must clean up his messes. What messes? The seals. The prisoners. The brother who won't stay asleep. The huntress gestured, and her hounds rose, circling Gwen and Cody with casual menace. My nephew pushes against his bonds. My brother-in-law refuses to act decisively. And you, little humans, you wander through it all, oblivious to the danger. We're not oblivious, Gwen said. We know what's happening. We're trying to help. Help? The huntress laughed. You are children. Less than children. You are mayflies dancing on the skin of a sleeping giant. What help could you possibly offer? I don't know. But I'm not going to stop trying. The huntress studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, her expression shifted, from contempt to something like curiosity. You carry the phoenix's flame, she observed. How? It chose me. During a challenge. Chose you. The huntress moved closer, examining Gwen with unsettling intensity. The phoenix does not choose lightly. It sees what others miss. It recognizes kindred spirits, those who have burned and risen, until the fire becomes part of them. She tilted her head. Have you burned, little mayfly? Gwen thought about her life before the island. About the loneliness, the rejection, the constant sense of not belonging. About coming here, to this insane place, and finally finding something like purpose. Yeah, she said quietly. I've burned. The huntress was silent for a long moment. Then she stepped back and gestured to her hounds, who immediately lay down. Interesting, she said. Very interesting. She turned to Cody, who'd been frozen in terror throughout the exchange. And you? What burns in you? I have a crush? Cody squeaked. On Gwen? That's kind of a fire? Not literally, though. Figuratively. Very figuratively. The huntress stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed, a genuine laugh, warm and surprised. Innocence, she said. Pure, uncomplicated innocence. That burns too, in its way. She looked back at Gwen. You two are more than you appear. More than Naruto probably realizes. Perhaps that's why the island brought you here. The island brought us? The island is alive, child. More alive than most things. It feels, thinks, chooses. And it has chosen you, both of you, for something. The huntress knelt, bringing herself to eye level. Ryujin will break free soon. Days, perhaps hours. When he does, this island will become a battlefield. Many of you will die. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's truth. The huntress stood. But here is also truth, you are stronger than you know. The phoenix's flame, the innocent heart, these are weapons against the darkness. Use them. Trust them. Trust each other. She raised her hand, and the forest shifted again, the trees parting, a path appearing, leading back toward camp. Go. Rest. Prepare. The storm comes. Gwen and Cody didn't need to be told twice. They ran. Behind them, the huntress watched, her hounds pressing close. Interesting times, she murmured. Interesting children. Perhaps, for once, the mayflies will surprise us all. They burst into camp hours later, exhausted and terrified, to find chaos already unfolding. The seals had broken. Ryujin was rising. And Naruto stood alone at the island's center, waiting to face his brother. The sky had turned the color of bruises. Thunder rolled continuously, though no rain fell. And at the island's heart, something vast and terrible clawed its way toward the surface. Everyone to the bunker! Chris shouted, his usual manic energy replaced by genuine panic. Now! Move! The campers ran, herded by Chef and the production crew toward a reinforced structure that had apparently been built for exactly this contingency. But Gwen didn't follow. Gwen! Cody grabbed her arm. What are you doing? I have to help. Help? Help with what? That's a dragon. An ancient, apocalyptic dragon. You're human. Not entirely. Gwen pulled free. Not anymore. She ran toward the center of the island, toward the chaos, toward whatever awaited. Naruto stood at the edge of the chasm, watching his brother rise. Ryujin was magnificent in his fury, scales like obsidian, eyes like dying suns, wings that blotted out the sky. He rose from the depths slowly, savoring his freedom, and when he spoke, his voice shook the island. Little brother. It's been so long. Too long, Naruto agreed. And not long enough. You locked me away. You chose them over me. I chose life over death. Growth over stagnation. Hope over despair. Same thing in the end. Ryujin's massive form cleared the chasm, settling on the island with a weight that cracked the ground. And now I'm free. Now we settle this. Once and for all. Agreed. Naruto's form shifted, silver light enveloping him, growing, expanding. When it faded, a dragon stood where he'd been. Not as large as Ryujin, but somehow denser. Scales like moonlight, eyes like galaxies, presence like the weight of ages. The dragon of the apocalypse, revealed. Brothers faced each other across the broken ground, and the island held its breath. Gwen arrived just as they clashed. The impact sent shockwaves through everything, trees flattened, rocks shattered, the very air screamed. She was thrown backward, tumbling, but the phoenix's flame flared protectively, cushioning her fall. She looked up and saw war. Dragons fighting as only immortals could, with fire and claw and magic older than worlds. Naruto was faster, more precise, but Ryujin was angry, and anger had its own power. They tore at each other, locked in combat that would have destroyed cities. The island groaned beneath them, cracks spreading, the sea churning at its edges. And Gwen watched, helpless. Then the others arrived. Azura came first, diving from the sky with a battle cry that shook the clouds. She was small compared to the combatants, but she was fast, darting around Ryujin's head, distracting him with bursts of magic. "Leave my father alone!" she screamed. Selene came next, striding from the forest with stars swirling around her. She raised her hands and pulled, and the very heavens responded, lightning arcing down to strike Ryujin's flank. "You should have stayed asleep, nephew." Atlanta arrived on horseback, bows singing, arrows finding gaps in Ryujin's scales. The huntress followed with her hounds, snapping and tearing at the great dragon's legs. And then, and possibly, more. A woman with hair like water, who sang and made the ocean rise. A man with eyes of flame, who walked through Ryujin's fire untouched. Children who looked like Naruto, young and old and everywhere between. The family had come. Ryujin roared in fury and pain, lashing out at his relatives with desperate strength. But there were too many of them. Too many years of training, too many bonds of blood and love. They worked together like a single organism, driving him back, weakening him, forcing him toward the chasm from which he'd risen. "No!" he bellowed. "Not again! Never again!" "Brother!" Naruto's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop! Please!" Ryujin froze. Naruto shifted back to human form, standing before his brother's massive face. He was so small in comparison, a mayfly before a mountain. But he didn't flinch. "I know you're angry," he said quietly. "I know you feel betrayed. I know you think I chose them over you." He spread his hands. "But I didn't choose against you. I chose for something. For a world where both humans and dragons could exist. For a future where we didn't have to destroy everything to survive. They are insects. They're people. Flawed and foolish and frustrating, yes. But also capable of love, of growth, of change." Naruto smiled sadly. "Sound familiar?" Ryujin was silent. "You taught me that once. Before the rage. You taught me that strength isn't about power, it's about choosing how to use it. About protecting rather than destroying." Naruto stepped closer, reaching up to touch his brother's snout. "I still believe that. Because of you. Because of who you were before the darkness took you." I don't. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to try. To fight the darkness the way you fought our enemies. To be the brother I remember." Long silence. Then, slowly, Ryujin's form began to shrink. It was agonizing. Every shift, every change seemed to cause him pain. But he did it. He fought his own nature, his own rage, his own millennia of hatred, and he changed. When it was over, a man stood where the dragon had been. Tall, dark-haired, exhausted. He looked at Naruto with eyes that held 10,000 years of sorrow. I don't know if I can," he whispered. "Be who I was. The darkness is still there." "I know." Naruto embraced him. "But you don't have to fight it alone. Not anymore." Around them, the family gathered, cautiously at first, then with growing hope. Hands reached out. Voices spoke softly. And slowly, tentatively, Ryujin began to cry. Gwen watched from a distance, tears streaming down her own face. She didn't understand everything she'd witnessed, but she understood enough. Family was complicated. Family was painful. Family could hurt you in ways nothing else could. But family was also love. Was also hope. Was also the willingness to fight, to change, to forgive. Naruto looked up and met her eyes across the distance. He smiled, a real smile, tired but genuine, and nodded. Thank you, that nod seemed to say. For believing. For helping. For being here. Gwen nodded back. You're welcome. The campers emerged from the bunker the next morning to find an island transformed. The chasm remained, but it was healing, plants already creeping across its edges, animals returning to its depths. The sky was clear. The air was sweet. And standing at the dock, waiting for them, was Naruto. The challenge, he said quietly, is over. You've won. Won what? Lindsay asked. Everything. He gestured, and the other dragons appeared, Azura, Selene, Atlanta, the huntress, even Ryujin, standing apart but present. The seals are restored. My brother has chosen a new path. The island is at peace. He looked at the campers, one by one. Because of you. Us? Duncan snorted. We didn't do anything. You did everything. Naruto moved through the group, pausing before each camper. You felt. You grew. You chose kindness over cruelty, connection over isolation. You reminded us, all of us, what it means to be alive. He stopped before Gwen. And you, he said softly. You carried fire. You faced darkness. You became more than you were. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Thank you? Gwen didn't know what to say. So she did the only thing that felt right. She hugged him. Naruto stiffened in surprise, then, slowly, relaxed, returning the embrace. Family, he murmured, comes in many forms. Yeah, Gwen agreed. It does. That night, around the campfire, dragons and humans sat together for the first time in 10,000 years. Stories were shared. Laughter echoed. Bonds formed that would last lifetimes. And in the morning, the show would continue. Chris was already planning next season, his terror at the dragon attack somehow transformed into enthusiasm for the ratings it generated. But that was tomorrow. Tonight there was peace. Tonight there was family. Tonight, the dragon of Total Drama Island smiled.